No one recognized her. Until the young barista slid a note across the counter, and Julia Roberts felt her hands begin to shake. The coffee shop was called Ember and Oak. Small. Independent. The kind of place that existed in the gaps between Los Angeles's polished facades, tucked on a side street in Silver Lake where the morning light came in sideways through dusty windows and the espresso machine hissed like it had stories to tell. Julia Roberts stood 3 people back in line. Baseball cap pulled low. Oversized sunglasses. Plain gray hoodie with the sleeves pushed up. No makeup. Hair tied back in a simple ponytail. She looked like any other woman in her mid-50s grabbing coffee on a Tuesday morning. Tired. Ordinary. Invisible. That's exactly what she wanted. She'd been coming here for 6 weeks. Always Tuesday mornings. Always 9:47 a.m., late enough that the early rush had cleared, early enough that the lunch crowd hadn't started. She'd discovered the place by accident, driving aimlessly after a doctor's appointment she hadn't told anyone about. The kind of appointment where they use words like monitoring, and precautionary, and we'll check again in 3 months, while your whole body goes cold. At Ember and Oak, no one looked twice. No one whispered. No one pulled out their phones. Julia could order a simple black coffee, sit in the corner booth by the window, and just be nobody for 30 minutes. It was the most valuable thing in her life right now. The line moved forward. Julia kept her eyes down, studying the scuffed tile floor. 2 people ahead of her now. The barista at the register was new, or at least Julia hadn't seen her before. Young, maybe 23. Dark hair in a bun. Green apron. Moving with the efficient grace of someone who'd worked service jobs long enough to read people instantly. Julia stepped up to the counter. "Morning," the barista said, her voice warm but professional. "What can I get you?" "Just a black coffee. Medium." Julia's voice was quiet, slightly hoarse. She kept the sunglasses on. "For here or to go?" "To go." The barista rang it up. Julia handed over a $10 bill, received her change, moved to the pickup area. The whole interaction took 40 seconds. Routine. Forgettable. Perfect. She waited by the counter, phone in hand but not really looking at it. Just the pose of someone occupied. Around her, the coffee shop hummed with its small rhythms, the hiss of steamed milk, the murmur of a couple at a corner table, the scrape of a chair against tile. "Black coffee, medium," the barista called out. Julia stepped forward. The barista held out the cup. Their fingers touched briefly as Julia took it, and in that half-second of contact, Julia felt the barista press something against her palm. Something small. Paper. Julia's eyes flicked up. Met the barista's gaze for the first time. The young woman's expression was calm. Steady. Not the look of a fan seeking acknowledgement. Something else entirely. Something that made Julia's chest tighten. "Have a good day," the barista said quietly. Julia nodded. Turned. Walked toward the door with the cup in one hand and the small folded note pressed against her palm with the other. She made it to her car. A 10-year-old Honda Civic she kept registered under her business manager's name. She sat in the driver's seat, door closed, engine off. The coffee sat in the cup holder, already forgotten. Julia unfolded the note. The handwriting was careful. Deliberate. The kind of writing that took time. "I know who you are. I also know why you're here. 3rd booth, back corner. I take my break in 5 minutes. Please wait." Julia's hands were shaking. Actually shaking. She looked up through the windshield at the coffee shop window. The barista was visible through the glass, already helping the next customer. Her face betrayed nothing. Julia didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. For 17 seconds, Julia sat completely still. Her breathing shallow. Her mind racing through possibilities. Paparazzi setup. Blackmail. Some delusional fan who'd followed her. Someone who'd seen her leaving the medical building 6 weeks ago and put pieces together. She should drive away. Right now. Start the car and never come back. Instead, she picked up the coffee cup, got out of the car, and walked back into Ember and Oak. The third booth in the back corner was empty. Julia slid into it, her back to the wall, facing the door. Old habit. 20 years of being famous had taught her to always see the exits. She waited. The coffee grew cold. A couple left. An old man came in, ordered tea, sat by the window reading a newspaper. Normal morning rhythms continued around her while Julia sat frozen in that booth, the notes still clutched in her hand. 7 minutes later, the barista appeared. She'd taken off her apron. Underneath, she wore a simple white t-shirt and jeans. She carried her own coffee, black, like Julia's, and slid into the booth across from her. Up close, without the counter between them, Julia could see her more clearly. Early 20s. No makeup. A small scar above her left eyebrow. Tired eyes that had seen more than 23 years should hold. Either of them spoke for a long moment. Finally, the barista broke the silence. My name is Claire Martinez. You don't know me. But I know your daughter. Julia's entire body went rigid. Which one? Hazel. Claire's voice was soft but steady. We were roommates. Freshman year. NYU. Before she left. The world tilted slightly. Julia gripped the edge of the table. Hazel. Her youngest. 19 years old. Smart, brilliant, everything Julia had hoped for. Who'd started college 2 years ago full of fire and ambition. Who'd come home for Christmas break and announced she was taking a temporary leave to figure some things out. Who'd been living in New York ever since in an apartment Julia paid for, doing nothing, seeing no one, slowly disappearing into a silence that terrified Julia more than any tabloid scandal ever had. You've seen her? Julia's voice cracked on the last word. Claire nodded. 3 weeks ago. She came to see me. Late at night. She looked. Claire paused, choosing her words carefully. She looked like someone who needed help but didn't know how to ask for it. Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most important part of this story is still unfolding. Julia's hands were flat on the table now, pressing down hard to keep them steady. What did she say? She asked if I remembered freshman year. Our dorm room. The night she told me about her mom. Claire looked down at her coffee. She said you were the strongest person she'd ever known. That you'd survived everything, bad relationships, public scrutiny, the whole world watching your every move, and you'd done it with grace. She said she didn't know how to tell you that she wasn't strong like you. That's not... Julia started, but Claire gently interrupted. She said she sees you trying. Coming to this coffee shop. Trying to be normal. Trying to be just a person and not Julia Roberts. Claire's eyes met Julia's directly. She said she didn't know if you were hiding from the world or from her. The words landed like a physical blow. Julia felt something crack open inside her chest, that careful wall she'd built between her public self and her private terror, between the composed mother and the woman who'd been slowly unraveling for 2 years watching her daughter fade. I'm not hiding from her. Julia whispered. I'm hiding from... She stopped. Swallowed. Started again. 6 weeks ago, I had a biopsy. They found something. Probably nothing, they said. Probably benign. But they want to monitor it. And I realized that I've spent 30 years being looked at, being watched, being Julia Roberts the actress, Julia Roberts the star, Julia Roberts the person everyone thinks they know. And I thought if I could just have this one thing. This one place where nobody knew me. Where I could just sit and drink coffee and not have to be anything for anyone. She trailed off. Outside the window, Los Angeles continued its morning. Inside Ember and Oak, time seemed to have slowed to something else entirely. You're not hiding from her, Claire said quietly. You're protecting her. From your fear. Julia looked up sharply. Hazel told me, Claire continued, that you've always protected her. Protected all your kids. From the media, from the pressure, from the ugly parts of fame. She said you've always been the shield. And now you don't know how to let her be the shield for you. The truth of it hit so hard Julia had to look away. Away from the cameras, Julia made a choice no one expected. Where is she? Julia asked. Right now. Where is she? I don't know, Claire admitted. She wouldn't tell me. But she gave me something. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small folded piece of paper, different from the note she'd slipped to Julia with the coffee. This one was older, more worn, like it had been folded and unfolded many times. Claire slid it across the table. Julia opened it with trembling fingers. It was a drawing. Childish, done in crayon. 2 figures holding hands, one tall, one small. At the top, in a child's handwriting. Mommy and me. We are brave together. Julia remembered this. Hazel had made it when she was 6 years old, after Julia had taken her to the dentist for her first filling. Hazel had been terrified. Julia had held her hand through the whole thing, told her they'd be brave together. Afterward, Hazel had made this drawing and given it to Julia, who'd kept it in her wallet for years until... Until when? When had she stopped carrying it? When had it disappeared from her life? She's been carrying this for 13 years, Claire said softly. She showed it to me freshman year when we were talking about our families. She said it was her reminder that being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means holding someone's hand while you're both scared. Julia pressed her hand over her mouth. Tears were running down her face now, dripping off her chin onto the table. She didn't try to hide them. She asked me to give this back to you, Claire said. She said to tell you that she's ready, whenever you are, to be brave together again. For a long time, Julia couldn't speak. She sat in that booth in that small coffee shop in Silver Lake, holding a crayon drawing her daughter had made 13 years ago, and felt every wall she'd built crack and crumble. Finally, she looked up at Claire. Why did you wait? 6 weeks I've been coming here. Why not give this to me the first day? Claire's expression was gentle. Because she asked me to wait. She said you needed to come here long enough to remember who you are when nobody's watching. She said you needed to practice being just a person. And when you were ready, I know. How did you know I was ready today? Because today, Claire said, you looked at me. Really looked. Every other time, you kept your eyes down. Today, you met my eyes. Even just for a second. That's how I knew. But what followed stayed with everyone who witnessed it, forever. Julia wiped her face with the sleeve of her hoodie. She looked down at the drawing again. 2 figures. Holding hands. Brave together. She pulled out her phone. Her hands were still shaking, but she managed to open her messages. Found Hazel's name. The last text between them was from 3 weeks ago, Julia asking if Hazel needed anything, Hazel responding, I'm fine, Mom. Julia typed, I'm not hiding from you. I'm not hiding from anything anymore. Can we meet? I want to be brave together. She hit send before she could second guess it. 30 seconds passed. Then a minute. Then 3 dots appeared. Hazel was typing. The response came through, Mom's coffee shop? The one in Silver Lake you think I don't know about? I'll be there in 20 minutes. Julia looked up at Claire, eyes wide. She knew? Claire smiled gently. She's been watching you protect her for 19 years. Did you really think she wouldn't notice when you needed protecting? Julia stood. She folded the crayon drawing carefully and put it in her pocket, right over her heart. She looked at this young barista who'd carried her daughter's message for weeks, waiting for exactly the right moment. Thank you, Julia whispered. She's outside, Claire said quietly. She's been sitting in the car across the street every Tuesday for 3 weeks, waiting for you to be ready. Julia turned to the window. And there, in a car parked across the street, she saw her daughter, Hazel, looking back at her. Share and subscribe. Some stories deserve to be remembered. Julia walked out of Ember and Oak without the disguise mattering anymore. She crossed the street, opened the car door, slid into the passenger seat beside her daughter. They held hands, both of them crying, both of them brave. The drawing stayed in Julia's pocket. The medical appointments continued, but she never went alone again. And every Tuesday morning, you could find two women at Ember and Oak. Mother and daughter. Just people. Being brave together.